I hate these technological problems. I had recorded this podcast a while ago, but turned out the sound was really messed up. So I'm redoing it here in a dark room. I'm trying to have proper lighting, but it's not so great. But anyway, so let's hope the sound is good. We are talking about design principles for sustaining the commons, and we looked at how to actually implement them in practice, and the kind of questions we ask to make sure that the design principles are being implemented properly. But then we have to worry about the threats to sustainable use of the commons. So even as we look carefully to the design principles for guidance, there are various threats to the sustainable use of common pool resources. We list a number of them below based on what we have learned from many case studies. So Eleanor Ostrom, obviously, as we said, was humble enough to say, I don't have a set of rules, but I can give you a set of design principles that allow you to build institutions to manage, to govern the common pool resources. But then after all that, you still have many threats you have to worry about, and one of the more obvious ones these days is the so-called rapid exogenous changes, especially from technology. So rapid changes in technology or population numbers can become a challenge to effective governance of the commons. Many examples exist. A new technology that enables fishers to catch more fish with the same amount of effort may render rules on where and when to fish useless unless restrictions on gear are implemented, and the gear can keep evolving, so the rules have to keep evolving. The provision of music, movies, and books has experienced many challenges during the last few decades with the emergence of new physical devices to digital files, like we had iPod, yeah, MP3, and we have now tablets, Kindles, all kinds of reading devices, and streaming of movies, and you can easily steal the books, steal movies, share illegally, and so on and so forth. So these are exogenous changes that are just too rapid to keep up with the old rules. These challenges have caused a need for change in the original business structure of creative activities in order to remain viable. A musician cannot depend on the sales of music records anymore, but must find other ways to earn revenues from his or her creations, and there are lots of nice articles on how they must yield to the demands from people who serve music, or companies that serve music, like Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and so on and so forth. The other challenge comes from blueprint thinking. The fact that some rules work out well in one action situation does not mean that those same rules will work well for other situations. The rules and regulations for urban planning in Boston might not work well in Phoenix, given the many differences in the biophysical and social context. For example, the rules of the ice hockey may not work well for field hockey. Boston has winters with snow that you have to worry about neighborhoods clearing out, homeowners clearing out pavements. In Phoenix, you don't have that issue, for example, but Phoenix has to worry about saving water as opposed to Boston. So nonetheless, blueprint thinking frequently, especially when large organizations implement many projects, as is the case in development agencies, companies may think, since they have so much experience in implementing projects, they can go around with a blueprint that will work everywhere, especially if they ignore indigenous knowledge. This can become a problem, and we discuss a lot of this in the sustainability science section, which is the next section of this course. The World Bank may implement projects on community development in many places in the world, but requires each project to use the same blueprint policies to receive funding. This can be a problem because each development project is location specific, culture specific, actors, rules, norms, everything depend on the action arena, which is very regional. So corruption and rent seeking is the next threat to sustainable harvesting of commons. There is somebody watching TV. Let me go and turn down the volume. Give me a second here. Okay. Sorry about that. This is late in the evening after dinner, and I have to do this because I want to post this tomorrow morning, and I want to make sure I'm still in the frame. So let me look to make sure I'm a little bit out of it. So let me adjust it and continue. So rent seeking and corruption are the other threats. When individuals in power have the opportunity to allocate resources, there's always the possibility of corruption. In these situations, various actors may collaborate to harvest subsidies or large infrastructure investments. When a bridge needs to be built, will the money be spent to build it according to specifications, or can the inspector be bought off to save on expensive high quality construction materials? We know that this happens a lot in the developing world, even including a country like India. So the next one here in the barriers, threats: lack of large-scale supportive institutions. Small-scale communities can be very effective in self-organizing and sustaining their shared resources, but will eventually experience challenges in the long term if they do not have the support of large-scale institutions. For example, when efforts are coordinated at a large scale, scientific information can be collected and analyzed with expertise and resources that are not possible at small scales. So it is difficult to build a particular accelerator by yourself, but with large-scale institutional support, that's possible. Farmers, for example, may receive help from highly trained professionals on new technologies and methods. So agricultural extension agencies provide a supportive role in disseminating new knowledge, information, and experience that farmers would not have the time to gather as individuals working alone. So there is a network, there is supportive institutional structure at larger scale. Okay, so I'm obviously rushing a little bit because it's something I want to wrap up this chapter 7. Critical reflections then on this chapter on design principles for sustaining the commons. Based on the analysis of many case studies of fisheries, forestry, irrigation systems, and other long-lasting social ecological systems, design principles can be identified. Those design principles are not blueprints for design, but are guiding principles to analyze institutional arrangements and help researchers and practitioners to ask appropriate questions to improve the governance of the commons as needed. So location specific, culture specific, sector specific. Irrigation will be different than fisheries, than forestry, than other social ecological systems, and so on. So you have to kind of see what the design principles are that we went through, how to practically implement them by turning them into questions and seeking answers, and how to take care of the threats that come into play even after the institutional structure has been designed according to these principles based on so many case studies. Okay, so make yourself think, what are the examples of boundaries that are not clearly defined? You can think of many, like the international waters in the ocean where everybody is fishing, and there are international Oceanic Commission rules, there are governing bodies, but it's way out in the open, so enforcement is not easy even if the boundary is well defined. Neighborhood watch programs are an example of self-monitoring. What are the pros and cons of such programs? Can they get discriminatory in keeping some people out because of their ethnicity or color? There have been issues that are related to such discriminations. How about neighborhood homeowners associations? They have their own rules. Will they prevent some people from coming or buying in that neighborhood, and so on? Have you ever heard someone say about the new house they bought, well, the good thing is that there is no homeowners association, so often people don't like the homeowners association. Often they tend to be dominated, the committees that set up that govern the homeowners associations tend to be run by people who are over enthusiastic and have very strict sense of what rules they want. For example, if you want to have a climate friendly neighborhood, and you want to allow windmills to come in. Some may say, but they spoil the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and house prices may drop, so they may not allow windmills, even though that's good for climate change mitigation, right? So when economic times are tough, politicians often recommend centralization of government function to save money. Why is centralization of governance structures in cities not necessarily an effective way to save monetary resources? You can think of that, because if you think of the various components of a governance of cities, you may have waste management, water supply, energy, zoning laws, housing versus commercial properties, and so on and so forth, transportation, green spaces, and so on. So having just one centralized government may not work well at all, right? So all those things we have to worry about. So even if you have design principles very strictly followed and institutional structure put in place, you have to worry about these details. And basically these institutions have to be flexible and respond to rapid exogenous factors like technology changes or large immigration coming in, large number of immigrants coming in because of some perturbation elsewhere, or because of climate hazards in some places. So how to assimilate them, how to accommodate them, how to ensure their rights are protected, and to keep crime down, and so on and so forth. So complicated issues, but these are essential for managing common pool resources and ensuring that they are sustainably harvested. Okay, so we talked about music, movie, and books. These are not necessarily commons, but they are like club goods. They are not public goods. But movies, you can buy a ticket and go, and only limited number of seats are available. Books you can buy, and as many copies as needed can be printed, but if it is digital and people start stealing, then it may affect everybody, even those who are buying legitimately. And movies, you may get membership to Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever, but Netflix has had huge problems of people sharing passwords and too many people using one subscription, and so on and so forth. So these are still part of governing the common pool resources, whether they are private goods or public goods, or they are part of the goods and services. As we said, private goods can combine with infrastructure like Netflix, to be viewed by many people, because movie is made by someone, let's say it's their private production, but they want to sell it to many people, and they sell it through Netflix. They cannot directly stream to you, but they will use Netflix to stream to you. Netflix will use your membership to give you that facility, and so on. Okay, so you get the idea. Let's stop here.